Charles, this is Christina Kraus, and I am one of the owners of Postal Impact. Postal Impact is a data and analytic-driven lead company. We also handle direct mail campaigns for investors across the nation, so pretty much everything that we do is rooted in data and analytics. I also co-own a company called Virtual Lead Managers, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about what is the area of your business, and really probably any service provider's business or any business that deals with leads. What's the biggest area of missed opportunity in that business? And what we know that to be is a lack of follow-up. That probably just made your heart sink a little, because you probably know, the vast majority of you watching, that the follow-up system that you have in place for the leads that you're already paying for that are coming into your business is very poor, possibly even non-existent. Because normally, even when we're talking to very established real estate investors, typically less than 20% have any kind of automated, systematic, methodical follow-up system in place with their leads. It's because we're designed to be entrepreneurs. We just want to go out and kill stuff, right? So we're taking that low-hanging fruit when people are calling us or where people are contacting us. We're seeing if we can convert those leads, and if we can, great, and if not, everything else kind of goes to the wayside. Here's the problem with that. What we know is that by and large, 60 to 70% of leads happen in follow-up. The sales happen in follow-up. 30 or more days after the initial point of contact from your lead, which means that you're missing a huge area of opportunity. We recently just did a study of our clients' data. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of points of data. And what we determined is that for those clients who had any kind of follow-up system in place, even if it was a bad one, 74% of their deals came in follow-up. So 30 or more days after the first point of contact with the client. So the client didn't say yes, the seller didn't say yes right away. 74%, hear that number. Here's an even more shocking number. For people who did not have any kind of systematic or methodical follow-up system in place, the percentage of deals that they converted in the follow-up sequence, 8%. That's crazy. That's a huge amount of leads that you're missing. In fact, it's the majority of the leads you're missing. You could close more deals in follow-up than you do taking that low-hanging fruit initially. And don't get me wrong, that stuff is fun. I get that. What we're actually going to teach you really quick is how you can actually create those low-hanging fruit situations, even in the follow-up sequences, okay? So one of the things that we're going to talk about is how important the follow-up sequence is, but B, also acknowledge the fact that it's just kind of not our thing. It's not what we do best. Again, we just want to go out and kill stuff. We want the sure thing. We want the low-hanging fruit. So how do we create those low-hanging fruit situations in a follow-up sequence that doesn't feel as fun as some of that other stuff that's coming in and taking our time and attention? So what we actually did is got really tired of telling our clients to do this. We kept saying, guys, you got to do this. You're wasting the leads. You're wasting the stuff that you're paying for that's coming in. Nobody's arguing with us. All of our clients are saying, I know, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And what we found out is that they just never did. Now, I'm going to put a little pin here, because that's really important. I think this is important for all of us as business owners anyway. I think it's really important to trust ourselves. So if there are things in your business that you know that you should be doing, but for whatever the reason, over and over and over again, you're not doing them, that is and should be a trigger for you that this is something that should be automated. I've been talking about automation a lot. People are talking about outsourcing and automation, and I think it's going to be critical for us to survive, to identify those things that we're not good at, that for whatever the reason we have an aversion to, trust ourselves instead of beating ourselves up over the fact that this is not hard. There's nothing that we do that's difficult, meaning Postal Impact. And we get into data and tracking and all that stuff. It's not hard. Any one of you could do it. Follow-up is not hard. Anyone can do it. But if you're not designed to do that, trying to force yourself into fitting the mold of that, or trying to force yourself to do something that you hate doing, is just going to take up bandwidth and energy, and it's going to make you less effective at what you're really good at, which is closing deals. So I'm going to suggest that you automate your follow-up sequences, and I need to make a couple of distinctions here. There are ways, if you have a lead management system or a CRM, there are ways that you can fully automate this sequence. So, there are triggers when the lead comes in, the system can automatically text, can automatically email, and there's value in that. Don't get me wrong, there's value in that. But initially, when the vast majority of those deals are going to convert in the follow-up sequence, maybe somewhere between like the first 30 and 120 days, I'm going to make the argument that you need individualized, customized follow-up sequences for those leads, okay? You could put it into a completely fully automated sequence later as the law of diminishing return kicks in, and you don't necessarily need to make the investment of as much humanity in that sequence. But because these leads are so valuable in our businesses, we're talking about things, that could drive another 10, 20, 30 grand into your business per deal. These are super high value. So it is well worth having somebody looking at these things and treating them like the gold that they are. This is the lifeblood of your business. You have to treat these leads with respect, right? So what we did is we, initially we're encouraging our clients to either run follow-up sequences themselves or have someone in their business run follow-up sequences. We ultimately created virtual lead managers, which are offshore-based VAs that are pre-trained and pre-screened to run these follow-up sequences on leads. This is something that you can do. You can, use companies like ours that will do this for you, but you can also outsource this information as well, to a VA or to somebody in your office. But I'm going to walk you through some of the really high-value steps of a follow-up sequence so that, again, you can either automate and outsource, or you can have somebody in your office doing that. If you're a one-man operation, all the more important, guys. I'm telling you right now, if you're a one or two person operation, you're going to be able to monetize so much more if you're being better about managing the leads that are coming. With the smaller businesses, that's what we see as the biggest fail point, frankly, is just organization and making sure that you're keeping track of things, okay? So let's get into what are the important factors of a lead manager, because I'm really going to suggest that whether it is that you become the lead manager or you place a lead manager, and this is critical for organization and follow-up, okay? So what we do is we train our virtual lead managers to nurture and audit the lead all the way through the sales process. This is really important because, again, there's a lot of fail points as leads come into your business. So let's start at the beginning. The first thing is, most of the time when people say lead managers, they're thinking about somebody who's answering the phone. When the phone rings, somebody calls in, they're answering the phone. I want to make a distinction here, because that is actually not a function that a lead manager should be performing. A lead manager should be a very detail-oriented person, a steady person, a methodical person who keeps their eye on a lead and doesn't take it off. They're going to be a bulldog with that lead. If you have that person answering the phone, what becomes the number one most important thing in that person's world? It's the phone ringing and answering the phone, and that becomes a distraction. On top of that, lead managers are not salespeople, and ideally the person answering your phone should be a salesperson. That's why we call them internal sales agents, or ISAs. Those are generally the people answering the phone, and that's different. Ideally, sometimes you have to combine roles, and I get that, but ideally you're going to have two separate functions, okay? You're going to have somebody who's answering the phone who's a salesperson, and then you're going to have this methodical, consistent, steady person keeping their eye on the lead, attaching it like a briefcase to their wrist and not taking their eyes off that ball, all right? So as that lead comes in, a really high value task of a lead manager first is to kind of become the master of the organization of that lead. Hopefully you have some kind of lead management system in place, or like a CRM in place that organizes your lead. If you don't, at the very least, hopefully you've got a spreadsheet or some way that allows you to keep track of the leads that are coming in. That person should be managing it from that point. So if you have a lead management system and you have a system like maybe a CallRail or something that records phone calls as it comes in, the beauty of those systems is the second your phone rings, you can actually set those systems up so that once that phone rings, a lead gets automatically generated into your lead management system. And that's what allows you to never lose sight of that lead, because now that lead is generated in your system. It's there forever until you tell it what to do, right? So we have these lead managers become the master, if you will, of your lead management system or of your CRM. So they're making sure that when the call comes in, a lead got created and generated, and then they're making sure what the next action steps are for each of those leads. All right. So we train our lead managers to, number one, make sure that when the call comes in, a lead got created, and then also make sure that if a call came in and for some reason was not answered or was abandoned, guys, we find that typically 30 to 35% of incoming calls, for whatever the reason, never even get to a live person. Whether it is that that person calls and something distracts them and they hang up, or you've missed the call, 30 to 35. Imagine doing 30 to 35% more deals in your business just because you're managing that front end better than you are. So if somebody abandons the call, or if you missed the call, a lead manager should be as quickly as possible identifying that and calling that lead back. It's a very high value activity, getting a hold of that person and saying, hey, we see that we missed your call. We just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything that we could help with, however it is that they handle that, okay? The other thing that we have our lead managers do is we have them listen to every single phone call that actually gets taken in the business. So whether it is that you have an answering service like Pet Live or Call Porter, if you have one of these people answering your phones, it's a huge value for the lead manager to listen to those phone calls so that they can kind of audit those phone calls for you. You're not now having to listen to every phone call to see if you hear any mistakes or things that you need to give feedback on. They can push the concerning calls to you so that then you can manage them without having to go through every one of those calls. But here's the more important reason why you want to have them listen to the call. Whoever's taking that call, even if it's you, you're focused on the deal. You're focused on getting through the questions that you want and seeing if this is a deal for you. A lead manager is focused on all of the things that these sellers are saying that you typically miss that are going to be absolutely critical for you to build rapport when you go out on those appointments or in a follow-up sequence. So for example, you're talking to a woman and she goes, hey, I'd love to continue to talk. I genuinely want to talk to you, but I've got to run out. My granddaughter is playing in the state championships for soccer. No problem. Let's set up another call. We'll talk to you later. That's gold right there. Because when your acquisitions person or when you go out on that appointment, if you can reference that and say, hey, how did your granddaughter do on that? Or, hey, how was your kid's arm that got broken? Or whatever the details, there's a ton of details that these people are giving you about their lives and their family and their situation in that initial phone call that normally gets missed, that a lead manager can go back through and listen to and document for you so that you're not having to think about those things that will help you build rapport later, okay? The other thing that this person can obviously do is as you set up appointments and things like that, they can put things on your calendar and do things like that. We even train our virtual lead managers when the acquisitions people come out of appointments or when you come out of appointment, rather than to try to think that you're going to remember everything that happened on that appointment when you get back to the office and then document the notes, which you hate doing anyway, and which your acquisitions people hate doing anyway, and they're terrible at documenting these notes. You can literally just record into a recorder after you come out of that appointment, and everything is fresh in your brain. Record everything that happened so that once again, all of those notes can get properly documented by your lead manager in the system. Okay, so those are some front-end activities that are really high value for lead managers to do. And then obviously, them following up on deals that you didn't make, if you didn't walk out with a contract, them making an individual decision about how to follow up with that lead every single time is what's going to bring you the most value. Okay, so let me give you an example of that just so that I can drive that point home a little bit better. This happens often if like, let's say you lose a deal to another investor because another investor was able to pay, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more than you were, or they were willing to go that far. Seller says, we're gonna, I'm good. I'm scheduled to close at the end of May. May 30th, we're closing, and they're gonna offer me more money. No problem. A lead manager can go back on May 31st first and call that lead and say, hey, you said that you were going to close, and we just wanted to make sure that that happened, or if there's anything more that we could do for you. I promise you, I can give you tons and tons of examples of how our clients convert these type of leads just by doing that kind of follow-up. That's funny. I just lost my train of thought on that. I've just been talking forever, so I just kind of lost my train of thought on that. But it's important, that they follow up after that. And if you were going to do that as a fully automated sequence, imagine the lack of humanity in that, right? So first of all, if it's in a fully automated sequence, what are the chances that on May 31st, the automated sequence is going to be contacting that person first, right? But then if you're just sending this weird text, like, hey, we buy homes, it's not going to work the same as somebody making an individual decision about that and calling and saying, hey, I know that you said you were going to sell. Did everything work out with that? I'm just following up with you. Two totally different things. Does that make sense? All right. So speaking of follow-up sequences, the other thing that lead managers can do, and this is fire. You've got to hear me out on this, because this can immediately drive income into your business. And it will allow the lead manager to pay for themselves along with other things, because once you get this whole notion of the value of automating and outsourcing some of these tasks, it will free up so much of your time. I'm all about the hustle, but I talk to investors every single day who say, man, I'm just tired. I'm tired. And the reason why you're tired is because you're trying to do a ton of things that aren't in your genius zone. And if I can show you how you do have the money to hire these people, if you're a real business owner, if you put $1 in and you get 3 back out, you'll duplicate that model every time. Okay? So one of the things that these guys do for our clients in their businesses that just creates immediate value is they go back into the bucket of old leads, all those leads that you haven't been following up on, or missed calls, or leads that they fell through the cracks. You don't even know. I can't tell you, there's pretty much no investors that we go into their business and drop these lead managers into their business that the investor doesn't say, I have no idea what happened with that lead. You're looking in the system, you're like, I don't know, it's not marked anything, I don't have any notes in it. I have no idea. Maybe I talked to them, maybe I didn't. Here's my point. One of the highest value tasks that lead manager can do initially, or if you're doing the work yourself, one of the highest and best uses of your time is to go back to that bucket of old leads and to call every single one, shake that tree, revive, and you'd be shocked at the number of leads that you can revive if you perform an activity like that. I don't remember the last time I've ever talked to any investor who hasn't said, man, I just spent a day going back through all of my old leads and figuring out what happened with leads and calling and following up that didn't say that they didn't book appointments and get deals out of doing something like that. So we pre-train our virtual lead managers to go in and to identify what is the bucket of the old and dead leads and to shake that tree and revive that. Now, here's what's important. And if this is something that you're doing yourself, you've got to do it, okay? And then you know what the next steps are. But if someone else is doing this for you and you as a business owner are the person who handles acquisitions, or you have a really good acquisitions person, lead managers are there to detect motivation. Ideally, unless they're performing multiple functions, that's it. Okay? So they are there to create that low-hanging fruit scenario for you again and hand it to you. So again, now you're in your genius zone, you can go kill it. So the second they identify anybody who says, yeah, I'd be willing to talk to somebody about the lead, they're not supposed to be taking a whole lot of time trying to sell that person or screen that person much further. Again, if this is a function that somebody in your business is performing for you and you're a smaller operation, totally get it. Just, that's fine. Just identify, the things that they're supposed to be doing. But ideally, that lead manager is pushing that back to you and saying, okay, here's a hot lead again. I just warmed this up for you. Here's a hot lead again. Call this person, close the sale. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Again, it's ideal for a lead manager not to cross over into a sales position, because this is not a salesperson. This is an admin person. This is somebody, again, who's going to be methodical and consistent about the follow-up. Okay. Super fast. I'll just throw in a couple of other really high value things, that lead related tasks. By the way, if you're going to go out and hire a lead manager for yourself, or you're doing lead management, ideally, there are 1,000 other things that you can assign to these people, but they should all be lead-related tasks and not sales-related tasks, okay? So the last thing that we talked about was reviving old leads. Another thing that you should be doing anyway in your business, but that a lead manager can do for you, is to study your lost deals. Find out what the story is when you didn't close the sale, okay? So if you run 10 appointments and you get 2 deals out of that, so you're closing at 20%, which is strong and solid. What happened to the 8 deals that you lost? What's the story? Who bought it? What did they pay for it? There's a story in that can be really helpful for you taking your business to the next level. Oftentimes our clients find out that the ultimate disposition of a deal, or what ultimately happened when that deal sold, even at retail, sometimes they can identify that it's selling higher than they thought or lower than they thought, so that the values that they're using when they're determining what's the max amount that I can offer on a deal, sometimes it's off. And if you're studying lost deals and you're saying, man, things are selling, because oftentimes, especially if you're a wholesaler, you can lose touch with ARV, like what things are actually selling retail for on the market. You can lose touch with that a little bit sometimes. So if you have these lead managers studying the deals that you're not getting and figuring out why that deal sold to somebody else instead of to you, it'll also help you build a buyer's list, by the way, at the same time, because if they're studying the disposition, then you know who's out there buying those deals for you. Okay? So again, I hope that I made the point at the end of the day of just the absolute critical need for follow-up in your business. This is whether you're dealing with sellers or whatever industry that you're in. Understand it's not our culture and it's not our nature. We're such a fast-paced culture. We're just, everything is go, 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 kill, kill, kill. There's so much value to taking your time with these leads. Number one, understanding how critical that lead is to your business and to the success and how well you do in your business, and then treating it with the dignity that it deserves, and making sure that if you don't close it right away, you've got some kind of elegant follow-up system after the fact to monetize every single lead the best that you can that comes into your business. Okay? Hopefully that helped, guys. We'll talk to you next time.